Welcome back into the Lucky Shots podcast, the Lucky Bets show today for week 9. Got Dylan Corbet back in here with us. Trade deadline was yesterday. Quite a bit happened. I officially hate the Broncos. First Von Miller, now Bradley Chubb. I'm not having a good time over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a first round pick out of it. We'll probably waste it.
Well, you don't have Elway kind of poking around anymore, or do you? I feel like he's always got some, the ghost of Elway's always hanging around that franchise. Yeah, I remember because you could have, that was the Josh Allen draft, right? Instead, you went Bradley Chubb because you were supposed to, you were supposed to get you were going to bring back the purple eating men of the early 50s with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. Didn't quite work out.
Yeah, seems like a guy that, in my opinion, you build around, not get rid of, as Von Miller was, as we still see Von Miller tearing up the league. So
Nope.
I'm not having a good time as a Broncos fan. So before we get into the lines, let's just run through some of our thoughts on stuff that's happened. You got the Colts with Sam Ellinger now. Seems like definitively. And last week didn't look all that great. What are our thoughts there? I think fantasy value kind of dips just a little bit until he gets it kind of figured out.
No, totally agreed. And I was, I wanted to play it from the sidelines, but I really didn't have the ability. So I threw Paris Campbell in a couple lineups. It worked out right around his projection, but I hated the targets. He got 2, ended up turning that into basically his projected production. But yeah, it left me with a lot of questions. I tweeted out Matt Ryan would have had the game-winning drive for a kick for a field goal at the end. I mean, what are we doing? Of course, as soon as I become a Colts fan, I send that entire franchise into a downspin like every other fan base I'm a part of. Frank Reich's firing his own coordinator, even though Frank Reich is the guy that's calling the plays. It's a lot of ass saving right now from Frank Reich, and I think it's not even working. So yeah, fantasy-wise, obviously, that took a dip because I was pretty invested into Alec Pierce.
Yeah.
The targets were there, but I still don't know if I could, he's basically, I'm keeping him there as a bench player until I could fully trust him, even in a flex position. But obviously my heart sours for Matt Ryan, who, tough way to go. Everyone ages. It happens in the NFL, except for Tom Brady. But yeah, it's been a tough couple of years for Matt Ryan, and, a great career is all of a sudden going to fizzle out with some not like kind of like Adam Vinatieri, right? I mean, Vinatieri is an all-time great, but Matt Ryan kind of, not a very luxurious ending to what was a solid career.
Yeah, and as soon as you jump off the Falcons bandwagon, they start being the leaders of that division. So
of course, yeah,
just our luck. So the Travis Etienne, James Robinson thing, this happened last week. Etienne had a pretty good game without Robinson in that backfield. Our thoughts on him, our thoughts on Robinson in New York for the Jets. I'm kind of sold on ETN after just seeing immediately after Robinson's gone, goes out and gets 150 yards on the ground. I assume he's going to start mixing in targets with that as well. So I'm pretty high there. Also kind of high on Robinson once he gets his footing with New York.
Yeah, I ask you a question here. Would you rather have ETN or Jonathan Taylor going forward? And that
ETN for sure. I mean,
and now even one better. What about in Dynasty, right? Like who would you have going forward? Is Jonathan Taylor trending down as most running backs do after they have this explosion in fantasy? Crazy. And, now Nyheim Hines is gone too. How about the NFL trade deadline finally figuring it out? And like becoming more like the NBA, more like Major League Baseball, and making a day out of it, a week out of it. We don't see these blockbusters, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, the James Robinson deal definitely ruined my Michael Carter handcuff, at least muddied the waters up a little bit there. Yeah, when is Robinson going to take over more and keep eating into Carter's production? Jets are interesting now, too, because they're showing that they're going to have to throw the ball. All of a sudden, Garrett Wilson, a guy who was a nobody, is all of a sudden a hot commodity in fantasy once again. Now that the Breece Hall backfield is decimated, and you basically have a timeshare that you're kind of waiting and seeing, as you're saying, who's going to take the lion's share eventually.
Yeah. I think the Jets will be all right to continue having kind of the same run game they did before Brees Hall went down. Uh, because I still think James Robinson's fully capable,
Yeah.
but I just think it's going to take some time. Obviously, like with this next guy, McCaffrey, his first week with San Francisco, eh, left you wanting more. Well, he fucking gave you more this week. He got it done through the air, on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
receiving. He had a touchdown in each category. Christian McCaffrey with the 49ers, even more valuable than with the Panthers.
Why not? I mean, you got a creative offensive schemer there. It's not like, Garoppolo is looking, he's not looking to rip the top off. He's looking to get to playmakers in space. And there you go. You've got one of the best to do it. Yeah, you hope for his health. Certainly. And again, I would kind of throw out the first week with the 49ers. He didn't even know the playbook. Like,
Right.
you kind of just started them if you had to, and it was fine, but it wasn't McCaffrey production. And then boom, this past week, yeah, crazy. I mean, totally revamps his fantasy value through the roof, right? Like,
Oh,
I assume he's got to
100%.
be the top commodity, and I think it turns, the 49ers into a much scarier team.
Yeah.
They've been able to turn weapons back there with no names into fantasy studs, and now they have a fantasy stud doing, exactly what the 49ers backfield does and then some.
Right. And then the two probably biggest offensive trades of yesterday, TJ Hawkinson going to the Vikings, Chase Claypool to the Bears. Uh Hawkinson, I just haven't seen much from him this year, but I think in Minnesota, it's definitely going to help make it a little more exciting. We'll have to see how he works together with Justin Jefferson, how that kind of plays out. Claypool with the Bears, that doesn't really excite me at all.
Yeah.
It's not a huge passing team. Maybe with a weapon like Claypool there, it takes off. I'm more interested in Steelers now of
Mm-hmm.
Deontay Johnson, Pat Fryermuth, George Pickens without Claypool there. Yeah, Claypool didn't really cut into the targets all that much because, I mean, they were trying to be creative with him, but overall, he wasn't super duper involved. So the Hawkinson trade, I like. The Claypool trade, it's just we're gonna have to wait and see anyway. Like, because it
Hawkinson, a
isn't
big
great.
name, and yeah, it's like, it's an offensive weapon, but again, I'm kind of like, I'm in wait and see mode because we thought Irv Smith would be that guy, and it's just not a real tight end friendly offense. Now,
Right.
will it be with Hawkinson? Are you worried? Does that make Thielen just like a no-go fantasy-wise anymore? Does that eat into Justin Jefferson as one of the top guys a little bit? It's interesting. I'm certain it's going to help Cousins, right?
Yeah.
But there's a
Yeah.
lot of mouths to feed now, especially with a name coming in. I mean, this new Vikings GM loves making trades, and he doesn't care if it's in division. Claypool, yeah, another name where it's like, okay, he's virtually going to be Darnell Mooney, but at least Fields
Yeah.
has someone else to, throw to and not get sacked.
Right.
Fields has been trending up, so I like that for Fields. But again, I'm kind of with you in excuse me, in hesitancy for. All right, now what does this mean for everyone else fantasy wise?
Right.
Gotta let my dog out real quick. I'll be right back.
All right. So we'll get into the week 8 cash ins. You had Denver, the plus 100 underdog against Jacksonville cash in. You had New Orleans, the plus 100 underdog cash in against Vegas. Washington cash in 126 over Indy, and Cleveland cashed in over Cincinnati. So now in the week 9 lines, I've got quite a few written down here. Only 3 that I'm actually willing to play, those being Atlanta over the Chargers, Jacksonville over the Raiders, the Rams over the Bucks. But you've got a lot of interesting lines this week. Going through trying to do my pick 'em this week was absolutely horrific. I had so many games where I'm like, maybe this one. Okay, no,
Yeah.
actually, I'm thinking this, but no, I'm gonna do this. Like, so much back and forth because there's a lot of games where it just could go either way, and I hate the NFL for that, but I also love the NFL for that.
No, that's the beauty, especially when we get into. I mean, yeah, we're more than halfway through the season now, right? We just kind of passed that 8.5 threshold with week 17 now, or 18, right? We're actually at the halfway point. Yeah, so that's interesting. I wrote down here too, and I'm going to kind of monitor throughout the week. This Texans line is so. I was on the Texans this past weekend, and like I didn't even watch the game. I like took a nap, woke up, and I was like, oh great, they lost by 7, casual, and it was a terrible game. Yeah, Titans all of a sudden, the Colts are gifting them that division. I mean, everyone's on the Eagles. The Eagles are just rolling. Again, we've talked about this where I feel like, the Vikings are 7-1, but it's like the half the NFL, or maybe even just 5 to 7 teams we know are good. And then the rest are just, I mean, okay, you beat the Texans. Okay, you beat, Eagles just rolled the Steelers. Okay, like I want to see you do it against good teams, right? And unfortunately, there's only so many slim teams. It's like the Bills, kind of the Chiefs, right? I mean, looking at the NFC, unless you trust the Eagles or the Vikings, I'm still kind of harping on the Buccaneers because look at that division. And I'll trust Brady, even if he is the lowest seed in there, more times than not over Kirk Cousins when he's the standalone game in primetime. So I kind of like this Texans line. I think Eagles, maybe one of the more quieter, undefeated teams we've seen in NFL history. Now that we're in week 9, I can't believe we haven't, kind of harped on that a little bit more. So I like the number here with the Texans plus 14.
Yeah. Any other lines that are really jumping out to you? I mean, one that I'm sitting on is Washington against Minnesota.
I marked that down as well. Coming off a big win, Heineke's a gamer. It might not look pretty, but he gets it done. Commanders all of a sudden. I don't know if Chase Young's going to get back. He's close. The Kirk Cousins revenge tour, going to FedEx Field for the first time since obviously, he had a less than gracious exit from Dan Schneider and company. East Coast Kirk, road game Kirk. Vikings have passed every test I've kind of laid out for him. I keep moving the line in the sand further for him.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Commanders there plus 3.5. You get the hook. Who knows? Maybe they squeak out a win. And then we just talked about the Titans. Yeah, the Chiefs are great. Titans getting 12.5 on Sunday Night Football. Like Titans are a middle of the road, if not okay team who have been in the playoffs for a while. I guess, is Tannehill going to play? They were able to just eke out a win with Willis. So that's what's interesting. And the last one I'm just keeping an eye on is the Jets, because there are a lot of big lines here for the NFL, and that usually gets my eyes wide. Obviously you said it. The Browns just cashed over the Bengals. They were 3.5-point dogs, and they ended up, looking like they should have been the favorites at home.
Right. Yeah. Only other one that's like really jumping out to me is Detroit against Green Bay, just because shit, is Green Bay actually going to win one of these games? There's 2 games, the Giants, the Jets, that they were supposed to win, didn't win. They got rolled by the Bills. I mean, now going in against Detroit, I mean, Detroit's nothing impressive, but neither's Green Bay. So it's going to be an interesting one. One to keep an eye on, but
it was like Green Bay gave up. Like they were running the ball down 10 or even more than that, just so they wouldn't get embarrassed, right?
Yeah.
And it was almost like they conceded. Detroit. I was on Detroit this past week. They pushed right at the number of 4 against Miami. I mean, it's the same thing. Go look at my video about Dan Campbell. It says it all. A lot of yes, we're men, and a lot of losing.
Right. All right. So let's hop into DFS. We're counting last week as a draw, a tie. Every NFL.
I had a good week too.
Oh
So
shoot!
we're
So did
lucky we
I.
missed the show. Yeah.
I was looking at my line from last week. I got so many notes in here. It's ridiculous. We're on
I love it.
the second week. I got up to 150. Tua cashing in, Derrick Henry, DJ Moore. That was a good play on my part, I think.
You like that Hail Mary he caught?
Oh yeah. Had he kept his helmet on, they might have been a team that cashed in too. So at my quarterback position, we're going to start with old Geno Smith. We're going with him against Arizona. They're 27th against the quarterback. He's only 5,800, so nice and affordable. Really like that. And Arizona gives up 26 points a game. They've given up 3 20-point performances, a 30-point performance, a 40-point performance. Geno Smith proving that he's somewhat fantasy relevant this year. Like,
Yeah.
I'm loving this matchup. And the last time I was loving on Geno Smith, he was like the quarterback too. So hoping
Okay.
that this is another week just like
Yeah, I'm starting him in one of my fantasy teams, so I'm hoping that as well. Yeah, not just fantasy relevant. I mean, he's almost been a mainstay.
that.
He's
Yeah.
kind of made you have some tough decisions there in Arizona. Yep, good matchup there. All right, here it is. This is the only. It's setting up perfectly. If Aaron Rodgers does not score more than 16 points against the Detroit Lions, he should retire. I mean, come on. What it's just setting up perfectly. This is the time where he's going to get 20 points. It's got to happen. He's relatively cheap, 5,900. So I'm rolling with A Raj in a
uh,
home game against Detroit.
yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, like you said, that it's got to be at least the floor in this game for him. But
Yeah.
uh, it's tough. So my running backs, two guys, one of them got on my love list for this week. The other guy I've got on my start list. So was able to put both of them in. Travis Etienne going up against Vegas. They're 25th against the running back. He's 6,300. Vegas just last week finally let Alvin Kamara go out and put up a running back one performance with 42 points. ETN last week, 156 yards, a touchdown, 25 points, running back seven. I just talked about it at the top of the show. I am really, really digging ETN right now, especially in this kind of matchup. And then my other running back, Tyler Algier.
Mm.
Why? Because he's going up against the Chargers, who are 31st against running backs. He's only 5,400. LA's given up 4 top 10 performances. 2 of those were top fives. And last week they gave up the running back 3. So
Yeah.
uh, I'm really hoping it's going to be a big week for Tyler Algier. We haven't really seen a whole lot from him, but I am okay playing any running back against the Chargers defense.
Yeah, and he's been solid, right? He was kind of, I threw him in a couple lineups, had him on the bench for another, and got you a solid dozen points, something like that, double figures. Not bad. It's been like 50 yards and a touchdown of getting a bunch of touches. So it's like touchdown or bust, but I like that play. I'm rolling with ETN with you too, just too hard to ignore there as he's getting all the work. I'm going to go Joe Mixon too. People have been ragging on Mixon a little bit, but he somehow finds a way to put up respectable numbers. Maybe not what you were expecting from a guy whose name we've heard for a couple of years now in a high potent offense. But I'll roll with ETN and Mixon there. They're basically priced the same and hoping to project the same as well.
Yeah, and Mixon just like you said, he doesn't do anything spectacular, but he's got a line and he's pretty much stuck to it. And
Yep.
if you can get that consistency, that's always a good thing. Wide receivers, let's cash in this week. Let's go
Yes.
Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, Scary Terry. Let's throw Scary Terry
Mm.
in a lineup finally. Jefferson going up against Washington. They're 24th. He's 8,600. Washington's given up 4 top 10 performances, 2 in the top 5. Jefferson's averaging 21 points a game, has 3 30-point performances. It's just got to be another one of those weeks. Hopefully, Hawkinson coming in doesn't eat into that a whole lot, but I trust Justin Jefferson. T. Higgins going up against Carolina, he's 7,300. They've given up 2 top 10 performances, 20 points a game. No Jamar Chase. I know last week that didn't really pan out. Just going to chalk that up to it was Monday Night Football, and I picked the Bengals, so of course they were going to lose that. This week, I think it's going to be a bit better. Who knows? Maybe we see DJ Moore go off as well, and we have just kind of a back and forth long pass game, and I would love that. And then Terry McLaurin with Taylor Heineke's finally reemerged. 18 points, 16 points the last 2 weeks. Minnesota, they've given up 2 top 5 performances. Really liking it for 5,900.
I like it. Sorry, my dog's talking to me here, so I didn't want to interrupt your thesis there. I'm rolling with Justin Jefferson as well. I mean, the projected points are just too hard to ignore right now. And then I'm squeezing in Tyreek Hill, who might be the most bankable fantasy receiver you can bank on outside of maybe Kupp, who's got a scary question mark next to his name this week. So I'm rolling with Hill. And then now here's where my lineup starts to get a little ugly since I was a little top heavy there. Zay Jones, kind of like a prayer there. He's a veteran. Trevor Lawrence it's probably going to be a little bit more comfortable now that he's not facing Denver swarming him.
Yeah.
So we'll go Zay Jones here, super cheap, 4,100. Guy that can maybe fly under the radar, get you a 560 and maybe a touchdown.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, and Trevor Lawrence, he's on my start list this week. So I think it'll be a decent play. It just depends on who's going to be the guy.
And the Raiders are so bad. I mean, that
Yeah.
might be the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Really
And
poor.
just reminds me when I was growing up and, the Raiders just sucked all the time. So I
Yeah.
love to see it as a Broncos fan. Tight end position. We've talked about, Atlanta as kind of middle of the road. I think this is the week where the Chargers offense just kind of gets it. And I think Gerald Everett's going to be a big part of that. It won't have Mike Williams, Keenan Allen in some capacity, maybe. And Gerald Everett's a guy who is consistent, at least 10 points or so in Atlanta. They've given up 3 top 5 performances, 2 top 10 performances. So 5 out of the 8 games they've played, a tight end's been inside the top 10. So I really like that play with Gerald Everett. And then just trying to sneak somebody in with the money I've got left. Let's try Evan Ingram this week going up against Vegas. He's averaging 9.1. It's the best budget option I had at that point. So let's roll with him. Let's see what happens.
I love it so much. I've got it myself. Ingram's my flex. I love him. I've been, he's my number one waiver priority for this week too. Is like, it's just he's putting up that line week in, week out. Finally caught his first touchdown of the year. Maybe that can keep going. 3,300. I love Ingram this week. The targets are there. They're looking for him. Lawrence can bank on him. And then you said it. I'm not going Chargers, but I'm going with the team that shares the stadium with them for my tight end with Higbee. Chargers game, that's going to be a shootout. I'm hoping with Herbert back. Obviously, he's down all of his weapons, but hopefully he could just throw it all over the field against the Falcons. But Higbee, another one of these guys that you could just rely on. Cheap, you've got him in the 3,000 level as well. Looking at probably the same type of game for Higbee and Ingram and hoping one of them, if not both, gets a touchdown there. And I love a good 2 tight end, Ricky. So I threw it at you again.
Yeah. And I've kind of adopted that with being able to go a little heavier at the top. So
right.
Good strategy there. And then defense, I'm really hoping that, you talking about Aaron Rodgers has got to be the game. Hopefully it's not because we're going with the Lions.
Oh,
I don't love it, but we're going with it. It was one of the cheapest defenses, and Green Bay, they're shaky, so why not try it? I think I played the Commanders a couple weeks ago against Green Bay in this DFS lineup. Didn't kill me, so let's try the Lions.
I like it because there is Rodgers showing you he's got a way of just not doing anything. Maybe a little more prone to throw the ball away too, but. The Dan Campbell, they haven't given up less than 24 points this year. But if you get maybe a touchdown, a pick 6, a couple of turnovers, I like it. I'm going with the Buccaneers. I think this could be an ugly game. This is a rematch of the playoffs last year. A little Sunday matinee. I imagine this will be Fox's game of the week. I could be wrong, but Buccaneers at an even 3,000. And, you're going to be looking for sacks of Stafford. You would assume that those are going to kind of get you your floor. And then hopefully and maybe Cup's more banged up than we think. So maybe I'm kind of sneaking in that price there for the Bucs.
Yeah. It's never a bad idea to just go with the Buccaneers defense if you can.
Right.
They aren't necessarily the defense of the past few years where they'll absolutely dominate, but there's a reason that the Bucs are in most of the games they play, even with a shitty offense. So not a terrible play there. Current standings there 4-3 and we'll say 1. Dylan up on that. This is gonna be the week. I think this is gonna be the week. It evens back up. Hopefully we continue to just keep it even for the whole year.
Yep.
Make it competitive. Prop bets. You're super far ahead of me, and I forgot to even write down the points here. So we're just going to ignore that, act like it's 0-0 for right now. Next
Let's
week
do
it'll
it.
be updated. At the quarterback position, we're going with Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes for more fantasy points. Hurts has Houston, and Mahomes has Tennessee.
I'll go Hurts because I think Tennessee is going to be more of a game, but then that kind of worries me because is Mahomes going to be throwing all over the place? Is Kadarius Toney going to play? Interesting there. I'm worried about Clyde Edwards-Helaire a little bit. Yeah, I'll go Hurts there just because you have the ground capability, and if he scores a rushing touchdown, it's more times than not going to eclipse most guys.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with as well. Mahomes is going to have to throw for 400 yards and 3-4 touchdowns, I think, to keep up with Hurts.
Right.
Hurts has been like the number one quarterback a few weeks. Mahomes maybe once this year, so I'm going to go with
Yeah,
Hurts there.
let's do it.
I like it better, and I think Houston is in that conversation with the Raiders of worst team in the league.
Yeah.
Uh, Geno Smith, we just talked about him in my DFS. Is he going to get higher or lower than 250 passing yards against Arizona?
See, this is interesting because I like Geno and I think you'll have a good game, but Arizona, like the only thing Arizona does is they don't let you go deep on them. Is Lockett healthy enough? Is Metcalf healthy enough? Are they going to go to Marquise Goodwin? I'll say I think you're going over, so I'll go under for Geno.
Yeah, I'm going. You're right. I'm going. I'm going higher. I think it's a decent matchup. You know, the Cardinals, yeah, they don't let you go deep, but you can move the ball on them.
Yeah,
And 250 yards,
right.
that's a bit on the lower side, but it's right in that ground where it's like you could get 249. It's
Hmm.
a tough number, so I'm gonna go higher. Hopefully, we get there. Austin Eckler or Alvin Kamara, more receptions going into this week. You got Eckler against Atlanta, Kamara against Baltimore.
Yeah, and Baltimore is like a sneaky, not too, great defense this year. I'm thinking about rolling out Andy Dalton as a stream. Yeah, Kamara coming off the like his breakout game, so to speak, or his re-announcing himself game. I think Herbert's gonna have to lean on Eckler super hard this week, so I'll go Eckler.
I'm going Eckler as well. If you look at the last 2 weeks for Eckler, over 10 catches both weeks.
Yeah,
Kamara, even as the running back one, only had 9 catches last week. So
interesting.
I like Eckler there. Now let's hop into another guy that we talked about a little earlier, Tyler Algier, in a matchup that I think is heavily favorable for him, higher or lower 15 fantasy points.
That's a good number. Um, I think I'll go lower because I'm hearing weird chatter about Caleb Huntley this week. I don't like it as an Algier guy. But I mean, it's kind of like what's going on with the Bears, right? Where you can't start Herbert, even though he's putting up numbers in that backup role where he's, arguably startable, streamable. I'll
Yeah,
go under for Algier.
he's a guy that either him or Montgomery that I'm surprised weren't on the trade table yesterday. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because you've
As the
got,
Bears are shipping everyone off.
yeah, and they apparently like Montgomery more than Herbert.
Don't understand
I
it.
don't get it, but then why wouldn't you send a guy like Herbert somewhere that could get you some capital? So
Mm-hmm.
two guys I was a little surprised weren't on the table. Let's move on to wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins, 2 weeks, 22 catches. What's he going to do this week? Higher or lower? 9 receptions going up against Seattle. 10 and 12 the last 2 weeks.
Seattle, a sneaky, really good pass defense, I guess, according to fantasy, right? Like they're the third best against receivers. But the D Hop target bonanza cannot be ignored. I mean, he's a must start.
Yeah.
And if he is a must start, that means he must be going over 9 receptions.
Yeah, I'm sitting there as well. D Hop was a guy that when my season started wasn't too hot.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, maybe I can throw him into a trade and somebody will bite. I'm glad that nobody bit because he's sitting on all three of my fantasy teams.
Yeah.
Went 3-0 this week. I've gone 5-1 in the last 2 weeks. Don't call
There
it a
you go.
comeback, but we are starting the train. The
I
engine
love
is
it.
rolling. Got to get back into it. D-Hop, big reason for that. So I'm going higher as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's got no Hawkinson to deal with now. Is he going to go higher or lower than 15 fantasy points against Green Bay?
I mean, what I guess injuries have been hampering a little bit. I mean, he took over the NFL. Now he's just quiet. I mean, Josh Reynolds didn't do anything this past week for me. You've got almost a running back competition. Dan Campbell, I think, should be fired as much as I think Boston College should fire their head coach and Jeff Hafley. I'm going to go under for Amon-Ra.
And fun stat here, he's on my sit list. He hasn't gone over 15 since week 2.
Yeah,
So it's where the number came from, but fuck it, we're going with higher because it is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love the kid, and of all weeks to do it, it's a good week to do it against Green Bay. So
is Jair going to get him? Remember, he was up in Diggs' face, and then Diggs pretty much blew him out of the water. And
well, here's the thing, he wasn't on Diggs for the whole night. He kind of stuck to whatever side he was on. He was on Gabe Davis for just as much as he was on Stephon Diggs.
True.
So, I mean, if they move St. Brown around, you could draw a more favorable matchup. Yep. I don't understand a defense that has somebody like Jair Alexander and he isn't completely following the number one guy everywhere they go. Right. It just doesn't make sense to me, but hopefully it continues this week so we can get higher than 15 for Amon-Ra St. Brown. We talked about Hawkinson. So is he going to go higher or lower than 10 points with his new team, Minnesota, going up against Washington?
Give me lower. Minnesota will find a way to mess this up. And I think you and I are on the same page where we like the Commanders this week.
Yeah. Contrary to that, though, I'm going high. Smashing the over on all of these. It's Hawkinson. I think this is a better spot for him. Irv Smith has had games like these, and Hawkinson is obviously a better talent than Irv Smith. Yep. I think he's going to go higher. May not be by much, maybe a 10.1 game, but if it's higher than 10, it's higher than 10. Correct. And then let's finish off with Kyle Pitts or Evan Ingram. I think I know where you're going with this one. More receiving yards. Pitts going up against the Chargers. Ingram going up against Vegas.
Pitts finally got a touchdown, right? I saw a lot of people with him on his bench there. I'm going Ingram. He's just the more bankable guy. I mean, if Pitts has the game he had last week, that's going to be a loser for me. But if Pitts has the game he's had pretty much every other game, that's an easy Ingram winner, and I'm going to bank on that.
Yeah, I mean, sitting here looking at it, the fact that it's receiving yards, I think Pitts. That's what I'm going with. I think it's going to be close. I think both of them somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 yards.
Yeah.
So it's just who gets that one catch that's a little longer than the other. So I'm going to go Pitts there. And looking at this could be the week I make some sort of a comeback towards you in these points.
Let's do it.
Probably not. I'll probably just end up in a deeper hole, but hopefully I'm the donkey that they try to bury and he just keeps popping up on the rest of the dirt. But that is it for this week, guys. Sorry about last week. That was my fault. But glad to have Dylan back in this week. If you didn't catch the show yesterday, full fantasy show yesterday on the channel. Tomorrow will be the game day show right before your Thursday night game. And then check out all of Dylan's stuff. I believe I'll be on his as well. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining, guys, and we will see you next week right here on Wednesdays.